Have you ever experienced this infuriating fishing paradox? You get to your proven spring spot in the pitch black. The bite is absolutely on fire, but the exact second the sun peeks over the trees, the lake turns into a total ghost town. Why does your guaranteed honey hole become a dead zone immediately after sunrise? Most guys pack up their gear, curse the weather, and complain that the fish just magically stopped eating. But what if I told you that you are leaving right when the biggest fish are ready to be caught? In this video, we are going to break down the brutal truth about the morning bite. I will show you why your old grandpa's fishing advice is actually ruining your chances, and reveal the exact reason why everyone else struggles when the lights come on. Be completely honest with me in the comments. Have you ever given up and gone home at 9 in the morning just because the sun came out? This topic is incredibly important for fishermen because the early spring morning is surrounded by old legends and stubborn habits. We have all been conditioned to believe that the early bird gets the worm. Generations of fishermen have taught us to wake up in the dark, rush to the bank, and throw our loudest baits. And yes, it works for an hour, but this creates a dangerous trap. We get so attached to that brief moment of success that we refuse to change our tactics when the environment changes. We do the exact same thing for years. We throw the same lures in the same shallow water, completely ignoring the fact that a rising sun radically alters the underwater world. We stubbornly blame the fish for being lazy, when in reality we are the ones failing to adapt to a massive biological shift. Picture this scenario because we have all been there. You wake up at 3 in the morning. You drink a cup of dark coffee, you drive in the pitch black to your absolute favorite spring fishing hole. You know this spot like the back of your hand. The water is perfectly still, there is a light mist rolling off the surface. You tie on your favorite topwater lure, or a shallow running crankbait. You make that very first cast into the dark water. It lands with a soft splash. You turn the reel handle twice, and boom, a massive strike shakes your rod. You fight the fish, land it, and think you are in for the best day of your life. You catch 2 or 3 more solid fish in the next hour. You feel like an absolute genius. You think you have figured out the ultimate secret of this lake. But then, the horizon starts to glow. The sun peeks over the tall trees on the bank. And just like that, it is like someone flipped a massive switch and turned off the entire lake. The bites stop completely. You keep casting to the exact same spots. You try different angles. You stand there wondering what just happened. Did they leave? Did they stop eating entirely? Let us look closer at the reality of this frustrating situation. You are standing on the bank or sitting in your boat, staring at the water. The sun is now fully up. The golden hour is officially over. We need to understand what the sun actually does to the water in the spring. It is not just about light. It is about a sudden, violent change in the environment. In the dark, the fish feel incredibly safe. They roam freely in water that is maybe 1 or 2 feet deep. They are apex predators prowling in the shadows. But the second those harsh sun rays hit the water, the glare creates a wall of light. Everything in the shallow water becomes completely exposed. Think about how you feel when someone shines a bright flashlight right in your eyes when you are sleeping. You flinch, you turn away, you seek shelter. Fish do the exact same thing. The sun acts as a giant warning sign. It tells every living creature in that shallow zone that they are now visible to eagles, ospreys, and bigger fish. That sudden influx of light completely destroys the comfortable, safe zone they had in the dark. The fish do not just close their eyes. They react, they move, they change their entire mood in a matter of minutes. Let us talk about why the old temperature myth is tricking you. Old-school fishermen always talk about the sun warming the water. Your grandpa probably told you that the sun makes the fish active. He said they love the warm water in the spring. But here is the hard truth that ruins that theory. In early spring, the water temperature is still very cold from the winter. When the sun comes up, it does not instantly warm the water. Water takes hours and hours to heat up even 1 single degree. So at 7 in the morning, that bright sun is not warming anything. Instead, it is just casting blinding light into freezing cold water. The fish are already sluggish from the cold night. They were only feeding in the dark because they felt safe. Now they are cold, and they are fully exposed to the light. This creates a state of shock. They do not get hyper and active. They actually hunker down and stop moving. They glue their bellies to the bottom of the lake. They wait for the afternoon sun to actually warm the mud and rocks. If you are fishing fast at 8 in the morning because you think the sun woke them up, you are making a massive mistake. Let us look at what the baitfish are doing during this time. We cannot talk about the predators without talking about their food: the minnows, the shad, the crawfish. In the dark, these small creatures move out into the open. They feed on algae along the shallow banks. The bass and walleye follow them right up to the dirt. That is why you were catching fish in 6 inches of water before the sun came up. But baitfish are not stupid. They know that daylight equals death. The moment the sun breaks the tree line, the baitfish scatter. They dive deep into the thick weeds. They hide under rocks. They move out into the deeper, darker water where birds cannot see them. It happens in the blink of an eye. 1 minute the shallows are full of life. The next minute, it looks like a barren swimming pool. If the food completely leaves the shallow flat, why would the big fish stay there? They will not. They follow the food, or they go find a safe place to digest what they ate in the dark. You are still casting at the bank, but the entire food chain has shifted away from the bank. You are fishing in a ghost town. Let us talk about the true vulnerability of the big fish you are trying to catch. We like to think of a 5-pound bass as the king of the pond. We think nothing scares them, but that is completely wrong. In the clear water of spring, a big fish is a massive dark target. When the sun illuminates the shallow water, that fish casts a shadow on the bottom. An osprey or a heron flying overhead can see that dark spot from a mile away. The instinct to survive is much stronger than the instinct to eat. As the sun gets higher, the panic sets in for these fish. They feel completely naked out there in the open. They know they are easy prey, so their brains tell them to stop hunting and start hiding. They lock their jaws shut. They will let a juicy worm swim right past their face if eating it means exposing themselves to danger. This is why you can literally see fish in the water cast right at them, and they just ignore you or swim away in a panic. They are in survival mode, not feeding mode. You cannot force a scared fish to bite using aggressive tactics. You have to understand their fear. Let us look at the secret weapon you need to use, called the shadow line. If the sun is the enemy, then the shadows are your best friend. This is a concept that separates the beginners from the professionals. As the sun rises, it casts shadows on the water. A tall pine tree on the bank will throw a long, dark shadow across the shallow flat. A boat dock will create a square of pitch-black water underneath it. Even a small bush will offer a tiny umbrella of shade. When the fish flee the bright light, they do not always leave the area. Sometimes they just slide over into the nearest shadow. If you pay close attention, you will see a literal line on the water where the sun meets the shade. That shadow line is the new strike zone. The fish will sit right inside the dark water, looking out into the bright water. They use the shadow as camouflage to ambush prey. If you cast into the bright sun, you will get absolutely nothing. But if you land your lure right inside that dark shadow, you might get your rod ripped out of your hands. You have to stop fishing the water and start fishing the shadows. Let us talk about the curse of clear spring water. Spring fishing brings a very specific challenge regarding water clarity. Before the summer heat arrives, there is no algae bloom. The water is often crystal clear. You can see the bottom in 10 feet of water. In the dark, this clarity does not matter. But when the sun comes up, this clear water becomes a magnifying glass. Suddenly, your heavy fishing line looks like a glowing white cable dragging through the water. Your bright green braided line stands out like a neon sign. The fish have excellent vision. In that bright sunlight, they can see every single flaw in your presentation. They can see the big, ugly knot you tied. They can see the metal snap swivel you are using. They swim up to your lure, take one look at all that unnatural hardware, and turn away. The very same rig that caught 3 fish in the dark is now actively scaring fish away. You have to adapt to the optical reality of the daytime water. If you do not change your setup, you are just practicing your casting. Let us look at how noise changes when the lights come on. Let us talk about sound and vibration. In the dark, A fish relies entirely on its lateral line to hunt. It feels the thump of your spinnerbait. It hears the rattle of your crankbait. It aggressively hunts down the source of that noise. But daylight changes the context of noise. In the sun, if a fish hears a loud rattling sound, it turns and looks. If it sees a piece of neon plastic attached to a giant metal hook instead of a real baitfish, it gets spooked. The noise that attracted them in the dark now repels them in the light. Furthermore, they can now see you making noise. If you drop a pair of pliers on the metal deck of your boat, the sound travels through the water. The fish hear the bang, look up, and see your giant shadow moving around. The combination of loud, unnatural noises and bright sunlight is a recipe for a dead zone. You have to become a ninja. You have to step softly, close your tackle boxes quietly, and stop using those loud, rattling lures. Silence becomes golden when the sun is bright. Let us dive into the massive mistake you are making with lure colors. Color is one of the most debated topics in fishing. At 5 in the morning, you were probably throwing something dark, a black and blue jig or a dark purple worm. Dark colors create a great silhouette against the night sky. The fish look up, see the dark shape, and attack it. But you left that same dark lure on your rod when the sun came up. Now it is 9 in the morning. The water is clear and bright. That solid black lure looks completely unnatural dragging through the clear water. There are no solid black, opaque baitfish swimming around in the daylight. Real baitfish are translucent. They flash silver, white, or pale green. When the sun is high, you must switch to natural, translucent colors. You want colors like watermelon, pumpkin, or smoke. You want lures that let the sunlight pass through them, just like a real minnow or a real crawfish. Throwing a solid black bait in crystal clear sunny water is like waving a red flag at a bull. It just screams danger to the fish. Transitioning your colors is absolutely vital. Let us examine the speed of your retrieve. Speed kills in the morning, but it ruins your chances in the midday sun. Think about how you were fishing at dawn. You were probably winding that reel pretty fast. You were covering water, burning a spinnerbait over the grass, or popping a topwater bait aggressively. The fish were in a hunting mood, willing to chase down a fast meal. But we already established that the sun makes them lazy, scared, and reluctant to move. If you are still reeling that fast at 10 in the morning, you are wasting your time. A scared fish is not going to swim 20 feet to chase down a speeding lure. They simply will not expend the energy. You have to drastically slow down your presentation. I'm talking about painfully slow. Cast your bait out and just let it sit there on the bottom for 10 seconds. Move it an inch, let it sit again. You have to convince that highly pressured, nervous fish that your lure is an easy, dying meal that will not require any effort to catch. Slowing down is mentally difficult for angry fishermen, but it works. Let us talk about where the fish actually went. The biggest myth in fishing is that the fish completely left the lake. We pack our bags, curse the wind, and say they stopped biting. But fish do not have legs, they did not walk away. They are still in the water, but they made a micro-adjustment in their depth. In the dark, they were in 2 feet of water right against the mud bank. When the sun came up, they backed off. They did not swim a mile away. They just slid out to the first major drop-off. If you're still casting your lure so it lands right on the dry dirt of the bank, you are casting over their heads. You need to back your boat up or cast parallel to the bank instead of straight at it. The fish have moved out to 5, 8, or maybe 10 feet of water. They are looking for that first ledge where they can sink down into the darker, cooler water, but still keep an eye on the shallow flat. Finding this transition line is the key to extending your morning bite into the afternoon. Let us look closely at how they use heavy cover during this time. If the fish do not slide out to deeper water, they do the exact opposite. They bury themselves in the thickest, nastiest cover they can find. I am talking about a massive fallen oak tree with branches everywhere. I am talking about a thick mat of dead winter vegetation. They wedge themselves into these spots because the tangled mess provides absolute protection from the sun overhead. It creates a dark, shaded canopy. When they are locked into heavy cover like this, they will not travel for food. You could throw a lure 3 feet away from the log, and they will not move an inch to get it. You have to become an absolute sniper with your casts. You have to drop your lure right on their nose, right inside the tangled branches. You will lose some lures doing this. you will get snagged. But this is where the fish are hiding. You are no longer fishing the open water. You are playing a game of hand-to-hand combat in the underwater jungle. Let us talk about the one weather condition that can save your sunny day. There is one thing that can save a bright, sunny spring day. It is the wind. A completely slick, calm surface is a nightmare for a fisherman when the sun is out. The water acts like a perfect window. The fish can see the sky, the birds, your boat, and your ugly hat. But a slight breeze changes all of that. The wind creates a ripple on the surface of the water. We call this a chop. That chop breaks up the penetration of the sunlight. It acts like a frosted glass window. Suddenly, the glaring light is scattered. The underwater world becomes a little dimmer and a lot less clear. The fish cannot see through the surface anymore. This gives them their confidence back. If you have a bright sunny day, you must actively seek out the banks where the wind is blowing. Do not fish the calm, protected coves. Those are dead zones. Drive your boat to the side of the lake where the waves are crashing against the rocks. The water will be murkier, the light will be broken, and the fish will be feeding. But what if there is absolutely no wind at all? If you are faced with high sun, clear water, and absolutely zero wind, you have to break out the finesse tactics. Downsizing your tackle is the only way to survive. Put away the heavy rods and the thick line. Grab a spinning rod with very light, thin fluorocarbon line. Fluorocarbon is nearly invisible underwater, which defeats the magnifying glass effect of the clear spring water. Next, you must drastically shrink your lure. If you were throwing a 6-inch worm in the dark, switch to a tiny 3-inch worm. Put it on a very small, light hook. This tiny profile does not intimidate the fish. It falls slowly and naturally through the water column. It does not make a loud splash when it hits the water. A fish that is terrified of a large, aggressive lure will often gently slurp up a tiny, helpless-looking piece of plastic. It feels wrong to use tiny gear when you are hunting for giant spring bass, but you have to adapt to the conditions. Let us talk about a strange biological reason why the fish hate the bright sun so much. We often project our own human feelings onto the fish, but we forget basic biology. Fish do not have eyelids. They cannot squint. They cannot put on a pair of polarized sunglasses when the glare gets bad. Their eyes are constantly open, and their pupils take a long time to adjust to changing light conditions. In the spring, the sun sits at a specific angle in the sky that drives intense ultraviolet rays straight down through the clear water. For a fish, looking up into that bright light is physically painful. It causes real discomfort. This is a massive reason why they glue their bellies to the bottom and refuse to look up. If you are throwing a lure that swims 2 feet above their heads, they will not even look at it because looking up hurts their eyes. You have to keep your bait pinned directly to the bottom. You must drag it right through the mud and rocks where they are looking. If you make them look up, you lose. Let us examine how your own physical presence is ruining your fishing spot. Let us talk about the most terrifying shadow on the entire lake. It is not the shadow of a bird. It is your shadow. When you stand up tall on the bank or stand on the front deck of your boat, you become a giant silhouette against the bright blue sky. If the sun is at your back, you are casting a massive, long shadow directly over the water you are trying to fish. You are literally projecting a giant warning sign over the fish. They see that unnatural shape moving on the bank. They see the frantic motion of your arms when you cast. Before your lure even touches the water, every fish in a 50-yard radius knows you are there. They have shut down completely. You have to be aware of the sun angle at all times. If the sun is behind you, you need to crouch down. You need to stand back away from the edge of the water. You have to cast from a distance. Sneak up on the spot like a hunter stalking a deer. Stealth is your ultimate weapon in the bright sunshine. Let us talk about the chaos of other fishermen arriving on the lake. By 9 in the morning, the secret is out. The casual fishermen, the late sleepers, and the recreational boaters have arrived at the lake. The peace and quiet of the early morning is completely shattered. Big outboard motors are roaring across the water. Car doors are slamming at the boat ramp. People are yelling across the water to their buddies. This sudden explosion of pressure and vibration completely turns the lake upside down. The fish are already stressed out by the bright sunlight. Now their lateral lines are being bombarded by the artificial chaos of human activity. This fishing pressure forces the fish into a state of total lockdown. The spots that produced easily in the silent dark will now seem completely devoid of life. You cannot fish the obvious spots anymore. Every boat that drives by the main point ruins it. You have to find the hidden corners. You have to find the tiny pockets of water that the casual fishermen drive right past because they look too difficult to reach. Let us talk about reading the unseen bottom contours. When the fish lock down on the bottom to avoid the sun and the boats, you have to take the fight to them. This means reading the bottom contour like a blind man reading Braille. You cannot just cast out and reel in blindly. You have to feel every single rock, every piece of gravel, and every patch of mud. When you cast your small finesse jig out, let it sink on a completely slack line until it hits the dirt. Then, drag it slowly. Do not hop it. Drag it. You are trying to feel for a transition. If you feel the bait pulling through soft mud and then suddenly it ticks against hard gravel, stop. That hard edge is exactly where the fish will be resting. They love the transition zones between two different types of bottom. By dragging your bait slowly, you keep it right in their strike zone without making them look up. You are putting the food directly on their dining room table. It takes immense concentration, but it is the only way to trigger a strike. Let us talk about the mental battle that happens in your own head during this time. Fishing is 90% mental, especially when a great morning turns into a terrible afternoon. We get frustrated. We remember how easy it was just 3 hours ago. We start fishing faster and angrier. We throw 100 casts into the exact same empty water. We complain to our fishing partner that the lake is dead, the weather is wrong, or the fish just stopped eating. This frustration is exactly what defeats you. The fish did not stop eating, they just changed the rules of the game. If you let the frustration take over, you will pack up your gear, go home, and miss out on some of the biggest fish of the day. You have to take a deep breath, sit down, and analyze the situation. Accept that the easy morning bite is over. Accept that you have to work harder for a single bite now. Reset your brain, tie on a different lure, change your location. Embrace the challenge of the midday sun instead of running away from it. Let us put this entire new puzzle together to save your fishing trip. Here is how you put the new puzzle together and catch them when everyone else has gone home. You move your boat out to 8 feet of water. You find a steep drop-off that is shaded by a tall tree on the bank. You grab your light spinning rod with thin, invisible line. You tie on a tiny translucent plastic worm. You make a long, quiet cast while keeping a low profile so your shadow does not hit the water. You let that tiny bait sink all the way to the hard gravel bottom. You do not reel, you just barely drag it. You wait 5 long seconds between movements. You feel the bait tick against a submerged piece of wood. You pause. You feel a tiny, subtle mushiness on the end of your line. It is not a violent strike, it just feels heavy. You reel down, set the hook, and suddenly your rod is bent in half. You just caught the biggest fish of the day at high noon, right in the middle of the dead zone. You adapted to the light, the depth, and the mood of the fish. You solved the puzzle. You just proved that the spring spot never died. It just required a smarter fisherman. So let us wrap this all up. The biggest takeaway here is the ultimate turning point in your fishing mindset. The fish did not leave your favorite spring spot. They did not magically seal their mouths shut. The unexpected truth is that the rising sun completely changed their environment, turning them from fearless hunters into terrified prey. By recognizing this shift, moving slightly deeper, targeting the shadow lines, and aggressively downsizing your tackle, you can turn that midday dead zone into your most productive time. This changes absolutely everything about how you approach a sunny day on the water. You will never look at a calm, bright morning the same way again. Thank you so much for watching and spending your time with me today. If this video helped you understand the sunrise trap, please hit that subscribe button. Leave a like to help the channel grow, and drop a comment below. I want to know, what is your absolute favorite finesse lure to throw when the fishing gets incredibly tough in the afternoon?